afternoon. My name is Megan Grewal. I'm an English teacher here at Viewpoint, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. I want to be clear about my objectives today. The two things I want to talk about are why we need to get away from these expectations of perfection, how damaging they are, and how we need to get closer to creativity. So first of all, when we hear perfect, we immediately have this reaction. We think that's what we're supposed to be. We're culturally conditioned that way. We can hardly spend 5 minutes in our culture without being bombarded by some image or idea or concept of perfection. And a lot of people think that perfection is the same thing as the pursuit of excellence, and it's in fact not. So I want to put that out there, that that's what perfectionism is not, but I can tell you some things that perfectionism is, having been one for most of my life. So if you want to know if you found a perfectionist, perfectionists actually believe that perfection is attainable, despite that all evidence is to the contrary, because we're human, so we're therefore inherently imperfect. But that doesn't stop perfectionists from trying. Perfectionists really believe in product over process. The end result is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter how you get there or who gets hurt in the process. The end result is the most important thing. They're people of extremes. It's all or nothing with them. And they're hypercritical of themselves, but conversely, incredibly defensive when criticized by others. So the only people who can criticize perfectionists are themselves, which they do a lot. And perfectionists also have this illusion that they can have any sense of control. Now, we actually don't have that much control in our lives, but we really like to think that we do. And perfectionists have a huge fear of failure, which keeps them from doing a lot of things in their lives. And really what I want to communicate to you today is that deep down, perfectionists are actually incredibly insecure, and they feel that they're not worthy, they're not good enough, they don't deserve dignity, love, respect, unless they're perfect, which they can never be, so it's a state of constant self-loathing. If it sounds miserable, it's because it is. But there are some bright sides to perfection. First of all, what for me started out as a coping mechanism, I probably attended, I think, 8 different schools in my time before going to college. And so when I would go to a new school, I would get perfect attendance, and then my grades would be good, so then I had perfect straight A's, and that worked well at that time. But I got to a point where it stopped working well. And also organization. Even my spice rack, guys, is alphabetized. So I love to organize things. And I'm great at keeping basketball scorebooks because you have to do that perfectly, obviously. Perfectionists can possess an incredible amount of drive and determination when they're in the process, despite the fact that you don't know why they're actually doing it. And they can come up with some wonderful work products. It also comes in handy when you are baking. Baking is a perfectionist's dream. You set the oven to an exact temperature, you follow the recipe exactly, you level off the flour with a knife, and of course you check the bottom of the meniscus and make sure that it corresponds, and that's how you bake something perfectly. So comfortable. Well, this worked well until I discovered that I'm gluten and lactose intolerant. I also decided that I didn't want to be a perfectionist anymore around that same time. Now, let's talk about the ugly side to perfectionism. First of all, what was a coping mechanism for me became very dysfunctional rather quickly around middle school. That's when it all happens. And perfectionists are actually the greatest procrastinators you will meet. And that's how I know in my students, if someone's procrastinating, I can usually find my perfectionist, because it has to be all or nothing. Either they do the whole project in perfectly a certain way, which is to say theirs, or they don't do it and they put it off until the last minute, and then again, the self-loathing kicks in. Incredibly strained relationships with loved ones. Again, when a perfectionist is in the moment, they have a really hard time being in touch with their emotions and with people around them. A lack of resilience, an inability to get over mistakes because mistakes are perceived as failure, therefore you are a failure. So that internalization really presents a lot of missed opportunities. So for me, not taking some classes that I might not get an A in, or I auditioned once for a play, I didn't get the part, I shouldn't have gotten the part, and then I dropped drama. Basketball, I played myself onto the bench because I was making mistakes, which happens in athletics. So all these things that I stopped trying because I was so afraid to fail at something. But mostly, I was not a very happy person, and I just decided I don't want to live that way anymore, and my body had thrown me into this full-scale rebellion against gluten. So I discovered cooking. And cooking, it turns out, is very different from baking. And this isn't a picture of my kitchen, but it might as well be, because when I cook, I'm really messy, and cilantro and onions are flying through the air, and I forget about what it's supposed to be and how I'm supposed to be, and instead I start pulling stuff out of the fridge. Ooh, what can I make? And I get inspired, and I make stuff up, and it's so fun. And my best creations now, and I call my meals creations, my best creations are things that are completely off recipe that I just made up. So what I want to leave you with is, let's get away from these expectations of perfection that we have that are completely unrealistic and prevent us from being happy. And finally, you don't have to cook, although I highly recommend it, but find something that's creative for you, whether you make a doodle that's never going to become anything, design something, write, dance, paint. Find something that for you frees yourself from those ideas of perfection and as a way to find joy. Thank you.